So, there's a lot of FNaF going on right now.
Was that the
10-year anniversary, new games, new movie, the long-awaited Dead by Daylight collab. So naturally, I'm gonna capitalize on the FNaF wave by not talking about any of the current news and instead talk about FNaF World, the sort of throwaway RPG spin-off of the FNaF series that followed after the release of FNaF 4, which nobody expected, might I add. I mean, how could you? You think the series is finally laid to rest after FNaF 4, even though nobody knew what the hell was going on in this story. There's a big thank you message on Scott Cawthon's website. All done. Just lock it up and call it a complete series. And then, all of a sudden, literally the last thing anybody would have guessed to come from the franchise. Not an unwelcome surprise, I guess. It seemed like Scott wanted to unwind after churning out 4 games in a year and create a game that was more in line with his previous works outside of FNaF. The game was set to release in 2016, not long after FNaF 4 in 2015, and well, it was released on Steam, looking quite different from what you might be used to seeing from the game today. The first version of the game showed a 2D, 8-bit retro-style overworld, reminiscent of the minigames from the mainline series of FNaF, which would then transition into the cutesy 3D art style when entering combat. However, the game was soon delisted from Steam after it was met with a lot of negative feedback, primarily saying that the game was rushed and published in an unfinished state. Scott Cawthon later posted the game on GameJolt for free, with a full 3D update, and this is the version of the game that we're all accustomed to now. Not long after, there was a second update to the game, adding new characters, minigames, areas, and a final boss. Despite that, this is still one of the most negatively received games in the series. But does it deserve the hate? That's what I wanted to find out. So for this video, I played through all of FNaF World. All of it. Well, most of it. I didn't get the clock ending. It doesn't matter. So, am I being honest with the title and thumbnail? Do I think FNaF World is underrated? Is it the best FNaF game? Yes. No. Maybe. I don't really know. I do think it is generally underappreciated. FNaF World was the first game in the series I really played through, and I just remember getting drawn in by the fun RPG twist on the series. Keep in mind, I was a kid when FNaF was first coming out, so the actual FNaF games freaked me out too much to play. So FNaF World was there for me to actually interact with these characters. So it does have a special place in my heart for that reason. But yeah, it's far from perfect, especially by RPG standards. It's just a long list of small things that pile up to bog down the experience, and I might sound nitpicky here, just keep in mind that I do really enjoy this game. Okay? Cool. I mean, to start, a simple pause button or a return to menu option would be nice. If you hit escape hoping to pause the game, well then you're just staring at your desktop screen. You can technically pause the game via the chips, bytes, or party menus, but at that point, just have an actual pause button. A simple menu where you can access the options, mess with the audio and graphics, maybe return to menu. I know that's something, at the time, no prior FNaF game really had, but for a fantasy RPG game, it would have made more sense to implement something like that. There were a handful of times where I instinctively pressed escape on my keyboard with the intention to pause the game, just to close the game entirely. I mean, it takes like less than 15 seconds to get back in the game exactly where I left off, but you know, still an inconvenience. The loading screens between every menu seem unnecessary to me. I don't know how much processing is going behind those screens to load back in the game, but this isn't a very graphically demanding game. I feel like there's a better way to optimize it so that these loading screens aren't as necessary. And on the topic of optimizing the game, there's a lot of visual clutter, especially in the later areas where so much is going on in the combat. It can hurt the performance at times, despite, like I just said, the game generally not being graphically demanding. On one hand, I think the insane cluster of bright and flashy particles is funny and in line with Scott Cawthon's game design, but on the other hand, it gives me a headache. The sudden jump to combat while roaming the overworld is abrupt and comes without warning. I don't need a whole encounter animation, but a brief exclamation point pop-up that then goes into combat would look and feel better to me. And while in a combat encounter, the randomness can be a bit frustrating. I don't know the specifics of what goes on in the background of the combat, but waiting a seemingly random amount of time to make an action is odd. I'm not sure if it works like how the movement intervals work in the older FNaF games, where after a certain time interval, it is randomly decided if an animatronic will move or not. There's more that goes into it than that, but that's how it feels like it works in FNaF World's combat. You can be waiting up to like 10 to 15 seconds between actions, helpless as you just get wailed on by the enemy. And that goes for trying to run away from an encounter as well. You just hold down the run button and hope it works in time. I just have to stare at the screen like an idiot, waiting to get lucky just to end up in another encounter after 5 steps. It can be a bit frustrating, especially if you're playing on hard mode and you haven't unlocked any strong characters yet, because the fights can take a while, so if you want to run away, you risk getting a game over. The overworld isn't exactly nice to look at. It has a charm to it, it does. It has this uncanny old computer game look to it, which I enjoy, but it gets old fast for me. It is full of many reused assets and environments that don't really hold my attention for long, and the pinwheel circus just gives me a headache. I think I've just been playing this game too much. How and why is this an actual screenshot from the game? A graphical makeover that still keeps the bright and cutesy computer game style would be great. You know, up the resolution of the models and assets, blend the colors and textures better, make more unique structures and assets to spice up the environments, and make your overworld avatar whoever is in the front of your party. I want to walk around as Shadow Freddy, who will stay right here for the remainder of this video. Please like and subscribe for Shadow Freddy. Or honestly, I wouldn't mind for the overworld to go back to a 2D pixelated style, maybe just a bit higher res than 8-bit. I know at this point it sounds like I just hate the game, but I really don't. I wouldn't have played through all of the game on hard mode, grinded for hours to unlock all the characters, beat Scott's avatar, get most of the endings, went into update 2 and go through hell and all these minigames, shot my ears off during Chica's Magic Rainbow, go through whatever the hell Foxy.exe is, and crawl through a poison gas labyrinth to face down my worst nightmare if I didn't enjoy the game. Seriously though, Chica's Magic Rainbow is evil. There is a lot to enjoy about the game. All the fun character models for every single FNaF character at the time, the wacky boss and enemy design, the insane attacks during combat, the glitchy overworld minigames, which admittedly give me a headache. I think I just need to see a doctor. It's a fun game, you know. It has its moments, which I will go through some of them now. Eventually bypassing the security system and facing down Scott himself as the final boss for the hard mode was a fun twist at the time, and it also gives some insight into how he felt about developing FNaF, though it could have been more satirical than anything. Seeing what's at the bottom of the layers of glitches, ending up in a place where there is no escape and you're just left with the consequences of your actions. Literally. Finding the various glitched objects to essentially force yourself above the overworld into some bizarro glitchy hellscape with really tough fights, but it's also very rewarding because you find the most powerful chips in the game there. Discovering the secret chipper boss fight, the disgruntled mascot of Scott Cawthon's game prior to FNaF. It's a hard fight that is a really cool callback. And finally beating that damn rainbow. I think the question I should be asking is, does FNaF World succeed as an RPG? While the answer to this question is largely up to the specific player, I think it does. I mean, it doesn't pass with flying colors. If I'm grading FNaF World's paper, it's getting a C-. While you're playing the game, you do feel that sense of progression, that you're getting stronger. You're adding new members to your party, you're earning XP and leveling up your characters, you're finding new upgrades to equip through the chips and bytes. As you get stronger, the enemies get stronger, and you have to come up with new ways to deal with them. That, to me, sounds like a serviceable RPG that could obviously use some fine-tuning. So, what am I proposing? A FNaF World 2. It needs to happen. You have all this new FNaF stuff going around, but no FNaF World 2? Since the release of FNaF World in 2016, there have just been a bunch of new games, a mountain of books, and a whole movie. This franchise just keeps going strong, and it really has evolved. A new fantasy RPG game will fit nicely with everything going on right now. I mean, there are like a million new characters to implement into FNaF World. It could seriously go on and on. You got the sister location animatronics, the pizzeria simulator animatronics, Glitch Trap, the Glam Rock animatronics, Vanny, and a near infinite number of characters from the books and AR mobile game. You can even throw in characters from the FNaF fan game initiative. It doesn't even have to do anything with the lore of the new games, but it probably will if they make it. All that with perhaps a more refined RPG system, and you got something special. Maybe add branching storylines or side quests, more lively locations where you can interact with more things and NPCs, more FNaF signature minigames, anything with more substance. Come on, you see the vision, right? I have seen some fan versions of the game that really expand on it on all fronts, adding new characters, locations, enemies, and an options menu. There are some great ideas here. There is a following for FNaF World, and I feel like since it's been so long since its release, people have come to mellow out their hate for it and appreciate it more. It might just be something that Scott Cawthon wants people to forget about, but I really do think that this game was overhated on release. So if you haven't played FNaF World, I suggest giving it a try. I'll leave its Game Jolt page in the description. It's something that I don't want to see forgotten, and I really want it to be revisited in some official capacity. So if I want this video to accomplish one thing, it would be to bring more attention to FNaF World. Maybe then it would help garner some support for FNaF World too. You know, let Scott or Steelwool or whoever know that we want more FNaF World. I can't be the only one. But that'll do it for this one. Please comment down below your experience with FNaF World, or anything Five Nights at Freddy's for that matter. And if you made it this far, that hopefully means you enjoyed the video. So please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. It would mean a ton. Also, a bit of a shameless plug, but I may or may not be streaming the new FNaF Into the Pit game when this video comes out on this channel and on Twitch, twitch.tv/cycloniteforreal. Check it out if you want. And if I'm plugging my Twitch, I might as well plug in my TikTok @cyclonite. Any short form content will be there, so check that out as well. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.